chat, Saints fans. All right, today we're covering your team. What do you got, Hayden?
What do I got?
Yeah,
Well,
what do you got?
I mean, I'll just say that I really have to say after looking and seeing what happened this offseason, it's not looking too hot. Like just comparing it to last season, it's not looking like it was an improving year. It's looking like it's a we're getting worse year. I'd say that that's probably due to the salary cap, but you're leading us for stuff today because I led last time. So if you want to get into what you thought about for the season, you can go right ahead.
Yeah. We'll get to additions and subtractions later, but just for my notes for their 2020 season, Breeze at times looked good, but you could just tell that he was falling apart. Throughout the season, it's just easy throws that, like 2 years ago, even he'd make like look easy, just so difficult. So many dump offs to Kamara just going at his feet. Looked kind of like Cam Newton, just throwing balls right into the dirt without giving guys a chance to get them. So it's good that he retired. Give the Saints some fresh blood out there. Speaking of fresh blood, a guy that may be a starting quarterback for him next season. Taysom Hill games were very solid, but they kind of left me wanting more. I mean, I went back and I rewatched the Broncos Saints game just because I knew Taysom would kind of be a big talking point. That was his probably his worst game, and I know he lost one of the 4 games he started, but that was the worst one. He looked really bad. Like if that was the first NFL game that anyone watched, I would understand why you would never watch football ever again after that, because it was terrible, terrible quarterback play all around. Yeah, but his games all around very good. He performed well, but left me wanting more. His deep ball accuracy isn't there, and that's something that everyone harps on him for. But if you want to be a starting quarterback, you got to connect on a couple of those a game. Alvin Kamara's a stud. He did it all for him last season, especially without having Michael Thomas there for a majority of it. He became their number one weapon overall, probably Taysom being right behind him, but just doing everything in the receiving game and the running game. Uh, Benefiting the offensive line did a very good job too, blocking for him and everything, buying him time on screens, getting him big holes up the middle too. The offensive line played very well. Uh, like I said about Michael Thomas, not having him really hurt their pass game too. I think it could have given Breeze some easier completions, given Taysom some easier completions too in the games that he started. But not having him because of injuries was just really, really rough for them. Deontay Harris, he gets your blood pumping every time he has the ball, whether that be in the return game or just any aspect of the passing game, or if they hand the ball off to him. You just want him to do something, and he does it. Very fun to watch. Their pass rush was great. Created a ton of turnovers for their secondary, just by pressuring the QB, forcing that ball out to get sooner. And with that pass rush, Trey Hendrickson was an animal. He played hard. He played like he was going into a contract year, and he got broken off this offseason, so hats off to him. And the last player on their defense that I really want to highlight is Chauncey Gardner-Johnson, because that dude is just a menace to everyone, even people on his own team. But he is all over the field. Like, I know he's kind of a meme that he just harasses everyone on the opposing team and gets receivers to punch him, but he is all over the field, and you can understand why guys want to punch him with a helmet on, because he just covers guys very, very well.
That guy is a treat. I absolutely
Oh
love
yeah.
him. I don't. That he's probably like my new favorite. I don't know what to call him. Is he a villain? Like how many guys in the NFL are you willing to call villains? Because like there's some guys that are actually like kind of jerks that I like really don't like as villains. But if we're gonna label him as a villain, he's a villain I'm very heavily rooting for.
He's kind of like Jacksonville Ramsey, where he like Ramsey was just coming in, he was like a fresh new trash talker, kind of like that.
You see, but Chauncey's doing it all on the field. He's just
Yeah.
always on the field doing it.
Yeah.
Ramsey was talking to the media saying crap before games even started and then getting cooked. Gardner-Johnson's just out there balling and, and just saying stuff to people's face. Like, I don't need to say this to anybody else. I'll say it to you right here, right now. He's just taking one for the team to the face, and it's like, yeah, that's awesome. As for the Taysom deep ball thing, yeah, that for whatever reason he can't throw a deep ball like and make it look good more than once like a season. I don't know. 37-yard touchdown pass to Emmanuel Sanders against the Eagles. Just think about that for a second. A 37-yard touchdown pass in the NFL. That's like not that far in the NFL at all. For a NFL quarterback, right? And yet for him, it seems like it's like, wow, he made that throw just because we're like so underwhelmed by his deep ball normally. And I mean, there's other points in time where he has another deep throw that's like a deep post to Emmanuel Sanders at another point in the season where it's like, oh boy, that got caught, but that was a awful throw, and that probably should have been a touchdown if it was 15 yards deeper down the field.
Yeah, he threw it like a punt.
He had to come back like 10 yards to it when he could have like ran 5 yards further under it, or like it was just terrible. So even though I have this in the stats, and I will get to that eventually, his completion percentage ended up being fairly decent. I think that I feel like it's pretty clear to us like that's the real area. If Taysom Hill gets significant time playing quarterback, it's the deep ball stuff. That's what we're really going to be questioning. Meanwhile, we're kind of looking at like not like so much accuracy issue for Jameis, just decision making stuff. So it's an interesting thing, and also like obviously a lot less I don't know if I should say that. Still got a ton of scrambling ability, but designed quarterback run stuff, definitely looking at limiting that with Jameis. All right, here's what I got for last season. Alvin Kamara is one of the best running backs in the league, only in competition with McCaffrey in terms of like all-around backs. These two are easily like the top two all-around backs, and I don't think it's that close. Even though I said like guys like Dalvin Cook in Minnesota like could be number one fantasy RB this year. Like, just in terms of actual skill, I really don't think, like, there's anybody all around that's near McCaffrey or Kamara. I think they're obviously the top two dogs, and you can honestly order them however you want, but they're both crazy. It's going to be interesting seeing what happens at the tight end position this year without Jared Cook. He's one of those guys that's insanely underrated in the league just because, he's getting up there in age, so it's like, oh, who wants to talk about the old man going out there and still making plays? Well, he's been doing it for ever now, and he's still doing it. So it's going to be interesting to see how they fill this in. They also lost some other tight ends too, and whether that's going to be Taysom playing a lot of tight end because Jameis is starting, or Adam Troutman is really a guy that's just a really interesting player to me to see what happens with him. This team's also always interesting because the backup running backs are always productive for this team no matter what, which is a good thing. It's just interesting that they somehow always manage to scheme it together. That's what happens when you have a good O-line, though. Traquan Smith will be an interesting watch this season to see what kind of production he has this year. If I was in charge of this team in terms of like coordinating the passing game, I would hope to see like Michael Thomas and Traquan Smith split out wide, and then like the slot guy be Deontay Harris, and have that be like my main three receivers. I don't really see many other guys that I want taking snaps from those three guys. I like those three guys.
Lil Jordan Humphrey, come on.
Yeah, no, sorry, not really. Trey Hendrickson, great young player, but they have a really solid amount of production across their D-line. Honestly, it's pretty balanced. And does anyone actually think that this team will be more entertaining if Taysom isn't the starting QB? I don't know. Maybe they will be interesting if they're turning the ball over every other drive, either scoring an 80-yard touchdown or turning the ball over with Jameis. But I feel like Taysom's way more fun, and we should just go for the entertainment value because based off, like I said earlier, with where their roster's been headed, which has kind of been in this downhill trajectory this offseason, I'm not sure that they're going to be competing for as much as I may have anticipated before in some of our previous stuff before, like looking a little more in depth at this team. And then obviously a point I completely agree with you on: free Deontay Harris. So much playmaking ability. Honestly, like his skill set is one that you don't get often in the NFL. He's really like top. If he reached his max potential, he's like a lower tiered Tyreek Hill, which is kind of just, it feels like we don't get those type of players anymore. Just not that often. Like Tyreek Hill And the last guy that I felt like that it had that type of excitement with like the same build or characteristics type of thing was like a Deshaun Jackson. I really don't feel like we've had another guy that kind of played at that level in a while, and it would be really cool if we got like two of them in the league at once. Don't think that Deontay Harris is gonna reach that Tyreek Hill level, but if he's a step below it even, that would be really exciting for the Saints. Demario Davis is another one of those guys who is just vastly underappreciated around the league, just like Jared Cook, but he's still going to be on the team, so he'll still be around for the Saints, and that's good for Saints fans because I really like him as a player, and he's a cool guy, and just like him, he's got that sleeve that's got that dope design on it that like almost no other players have. All these other players got like solid sleeve colors or something like that. He's got a really cool design that goes with the Saints uniform. It's awesome, and he does that every week. Plus, I mean, he just balls out, so that's awesome. One thing that makes the Saints a crazy team is that, like, I don't know if this will be happening this season. I'll just say I don't think that this will happen this season. Just the way they play, it allows them to blow out teams because they're a good team, but it like sometimes they even blow out like other really good teams. Like, I mean, this is a ridiculous callback, but like 10 years ago when we weren't sure if the Manningless Colts were gonna be able to win a game in a season. They played the Saints on Sunday Night Football and lost like 56-3. Like, the team was terrible. The Saints were playing a terrible team, and it's like, oh, obviously they should whoop them. But then when they come out and play the Bucks the second game this year and just absolutely steamroll them, and they're the Super Bowl champs by the end of the season, I mean, that's just crazy. Not many teams are able to come out and just wax somebody that's going to be the reigning Super Bowl champion by the end of the year. The offensive line, really impressive. Cam Jordan is also a great compliment to Trey Hendrickson on the edge, but obviously that won't continue. Chauncey Gardner-Johnson is such a goon. He's the real MVP. Already talked about him, though. Michael Thomas positions himself so well to make catches, but obviously just lack of time played last year kind of limited his stuff. And Kamara's Christmas cleats are still amazing. And the last thing of note is just that I can't say I understand the Malcolm Jenkins signing still. I mean, he played well for them last year, but it's really just something that it's like, man, looking at the cap space, and it's like, boy, you would have been okay at the safety position, but we want to bring him back. We want to bring old man Malcolm Jenkins back for some reason. I really don't know how much it would have hurt this team to not have him last year, and I really don't know how much it'll help this team to have him this upcoming season still. And with that, if you have nothing to respond to, you can move on to stats.
Yeah, for stats, I think we could just start off with you because usually you wipe the floor with me and all that. So I got a couple things. I'll just cover it if you don't get it already.
You'll back clean up for me. I got you.
Yeah.
All right, 72.7%. That's Taysom Hill's completion percentage from last season. That is a very impressive number for what I was expecting. I didn't realize that it was that high. I mean, maybe somebody pointed that out to me before, but that is really good for him, especially. It's a shame Kamara only started 10 games. He's such a treat to watch, and he still managed to have 21 total touchdowns. Taysom also had 457 yards on the ground. Kamara also led the team in receiving yards. He led the team in rushing, which I didn't mention before, but he had 83 catches for 756 yards. Michael Thomas, just wanted to make sure I mentioned it in case I didn't mention it during the season. He only started 5 games. If he gets in there more, it changes the offensive lot. I love Deontay Harris returning kicks. That's kind of obvious with what I said before. Will Lutz was all right, but not great, and Thomas Morstead was good. And because he was good, they have no cap space, so they don't even have room to re-sign their punter. I mean, that really shows how bad the situation is. He's been there forever, and they can't even re-sign their punter. But Malcolm Jenkins, Jack Rabbit, and Marcus Williams all had 3 interceptions. Jack Rabbit, otherwise known as Janoris Jenkins, for anybody who doesn't know. Chauncey Gardner-Johnson, 13 passes defended. Someone named Carl Granderson, who I feel like I may have heard of before, but at the same time can't actually remember seeing play in the NFL, led the team with 2 forced fumbles because he was the only one who managed to get more than 1. So threw that in there. 13.5 sacks for Trey Hendrickson led the team. 119 tackles led the team for Demario Davis. And 4 players actually got to 10-plus tackles for loss, which is really impressive. And Hendrickson, Jordan Davis, and one guy I didn't mention so far, Anya Mata, who also actually is a really solid presence inside and a part of that like defensive line crew that I said kind of just plays well across the board no matter who they throw out there. They got a good set of guys that sub in and out of there a lot, but I mean he's starting most of the time, but he's on the interior.
Yeah, that's everything for stats for me except one thing. Adam Troutman has some of the most reliable hands on that team, aside from their fullback, which they let walk. Only one drop last season, but he only had 16 targets. So get that up. Keep the same percentage though. It's gonna be a threat.
Wait, drop or he caught 15
He had one drop. He had a
passes?
99.6 catch percentage.
Oh, okay. Wait, 15 out of 16. Whatever. I'll trust you. That doesn't make sense mathematically to me, but I'll trust you. It's way too much work to figure out the mistake, anyways. Yeah, this is probably if you're okay moving on to the free agency pool.
Yeah, yeah.
Actually, I didn't check for any trades. Are there any trades that I'm forgetting about that happened with
No.
this team this offseason?
No.
I always need to do that, and I forget to sometimes. But this is probably the most disappointing list of acquisitions we have had for a team so far, considering we are at teams that lost in the divisional round. There are not many teams that we have left to talk about. The chances of a team being worse than this are very low. I mean, you could say the Bucks, but geez, I mean, if you win the Super, I'm
The Bucks' free agency was re-signing every single guy that was up to leave. That's their free agency.
You win a Super Bowl, it doesn't matter. I mean, when you're losing as much as the Saints are, and this is what you come away with, just to be clear, my acquisitions for them are Nick Vanette, and then this other guy who I've heard good things about, but I also just want to try to say his name just to butcher it, Tano Kapasangnan. I also
close.
So those are the only two.
You missed out on their third and only other acquisition, Alex Arma, because they have to replace their fullback.
Yeah, I actually saw him when I got to I once I'm done with all this, before I do the schedule, like and go through game by game picking wins and losses, I actually go through the roster. For whatever reason, when I was looking at the signings, I didn't see Alex Arma on the list, but then I saw him on the roster, and I was thinking about adding him, but I didn't know when they added him to the roster. But yeah, it is because they needed to replace their fullback. So you're right, that is an important signing.
And the funny thing is, Alex Arma might be their best addition from free agency. He's an athletic fullback, and that's what they like. So they replace an athletic fullback with an athletic fullback.
Hit the nail on the head there. That's pretty bad.
And for their losses now, which are a lot of names. Trey Hendrickson got broken off and went to Cincy. Emmanuel Sanders in Buffalo now. Jared Cook went to L.A. Malcolm Brown, Sheldon Rankins, Alex Anzalone, and Jack Rabbit are also gone.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I even have Josh Hill on that list, and two guys that they just can't re-sign, in Quan Alexander and Thomas Morstead, just sitting in free agency, rotting away at the current moment. So, yeah, no, that's a lot of starters that are just gone now, and just not really getting replaced, except for in the draft where they kind of tried to somewhat do that.
Yes.
Yeah, I feel like I've kind of like gone over individual team offseason changes the past 3 years in some sort of manner. Just in terms of free agency stuff, this has probably got to be the most brutal free agency thing I've seen in the past 3 years. I mean, going further past that, I don't know, but in the past 3 years, this is awful.
This isn't stuff. like we've ragged on teams before, teams that were like further up in the draft order that we've already gone through, that have had bad free agencies because they just bring in positions that they already have, and it's stupid for them to bring in more. But this is just bad because of lack of cap, and you're like scraping bottom of the barrel and looking for guys that will take like minimum contracts.
Yeah, you gotta not get yourself in this situation in the first place. Just to be completely honest. Now at the point in time you're now, it's like, well, they don't have the cap. okay, if you're just looking at it from like right now in terms of like what's how the past like 3 or 4 months have gone, yeah, there's not much they can do. But they shouldn't have gotten themselves into this situation in the first place. This is a pretty rough spot to be in, and yeah,
Yes.
that was a bad part of their off season. So
But I will say the way that they maneuvered around the cap, it went better than I thought it would have. Because at the beginning of the offseason, I think I told you like they're probably not even going to be able to win like 2 games because of all the cuts that they have to make because of how much like they were over the cap, and they did a good job maneuvering it to like keep most of the core together. Like, granted, a lot of big contributors on that team are gone, but they kept most of the core together. They didn't have to blow it all up like I thought they would have.
yeah, what about just wondering, are do we know if any of their like people they drafted actually have like contracts signed yet? Because I don't know if they had money to actually pay them.
I think everyone except I know that like almost every single third round pick is not signed with their team.
Really?
Like every single third round pick, almost every single third round pick.
Okay, that's weird. That's a topic for something completely different.
Yeah,
Tell me
but I think
about.
most of the guys resign.
Okay, let's just make the assumption that these guys will end up on this team this season and
Mm-hmm.
not just not have money to pay them. What do you think of their draft? And first off, specifically Peyton Turner.
Well, I like what they did. They filled in the holes for their draft that they needed to, and also some soft spots in my heart for some of the guys that they drafted. So I like their draft just because I like the tape of the guys. But first off, I mean, my number one edge in the entire class in Peyton Turner. I know that you're not as high on him as I was, but dude has an arsenal of weapons. Doesn't wear gloves, which is good because he plays in a dome and he also plays in the NFC South where it's gonna be nice and hot all year round.
That's where you
Uh
got him. That's why they picked him
yeah,
because Trey
yeah.
Hendrickson doesn't either, and they were like, we got to replace that feature specifically.
Yes, yes. But he has a lot of moves in his arsenal. The one knock on him, and I even said this in our episode for the edge rushers, my one knock on him is the dude loves to tackle people by the head. He loves horse collars and face masks. It's a bad habit that he's got to break out of, but he is not just full on. I am going to run around you. He can work his way inside, outside, flatten a tackle if he needs to just get over him. He's got many ways to get to the quarterback.
Yeah, I agree in terms of the versatility statement. I like them getting a replacement for Hendrickson, but just to be honest, I don't see enough flash from him. I like I said, I think he's fairly versatile, and that's a good thing. But for the competition he's going against, I was one to not really like Ed Oliver coming out. So I mean, me being like that, somebody like Peyton Turner, who's even coming from the same school, going against similar competition. Obviously, other people were saying that Ed Oliver jumped off the film like, "Oh my gosh, this guy's a can't miss," and now he's on my team, and I'm hoping he's a can't miss, but he sure hasn't turned out that way so far. Um, I just wish that he would jump off the film more to draft him this high. Obviously, I don't think the competition's very high that he's going against, and he was able to do stuff against them, but I don't know how well it'll transfer. The other two things I'll say that I liked about him at least, though, is that he batted some balls in the air and he blocked a punt, which is good, showing more of that versatility that you talked about.
Yeah, yeah, I can see why some people will be mad about the pick with other edge rushers that were taken after him, even in the first round. But I like the pick. I like Peyton Turner. Number two, they're in the second round, but their second pick, Pete Werner, out of Ohio State. I really like him. Just he was a fun guy to joke about when we were talking about linebackers because his main trait is I play fast and I am going to make mistakes full speed. It's like he's like the best coach's player where it's like if you're gonna make a mistake, make it full speed, and he does that all the time. Where it's like, all right, I gotta watch out for play action here. I gotta watch out for it's a handoff, and then he just runs, but it was play action, and
Blows
now
up the running back.
yeah, yeah, blows up the running back, and he was like out running a wheel or something. It just he's really fun to watch. He hits hard. Yeah, and he takes great angles too. So those were my couple notes on Pete Werner.
I just said it. I like his instincts. He feels like a football player, and I actually like him as an Anzalone replacement. think
Yes.
he may actually be an upgrade there, honestly.
He's more athletic
Yeah,
Anzalone, yes.
yeah. So that's interesting. See how he does, because I think he'll start
Yes.
probably.
hmm And their third round pick, Paulson Adebo. I don't think, or I'm just gonna take a guess and assume you don't like him that much because he's a tackling corner, and you're not a big fan of tackling corners. Uh, but he's a solid tackler. And my other note for him was you should never press him against anyone because he gets burned when he's pressed up against receivers.
Actually, I kind of thought the opposite. I mean, I said I like his
Oh,
size and
really?
his build, and I feel like he could really match up against anybody. It didn't feel like he was ever terribly outmatched. You're right, he doesn't seem like lightning quick, but he also has great hands. Like when there was a ball thrown his way, and like it, 99% of defensive backs would just be lucky to get their fingertips on it. He could sometimes still come away with an interception, which was really impressive, and that's something that I like. I mean, you're right, don't love just going for the purely tackling corner machines, but turnovers, man, turnovers are a big deal, and if you can make it easier on yourself by getting more turnovers, and this guy can catch the ball on defense, that helps you a lot.
And in the fourth round, this is a guy who is my number 6 quarterback, but it wasn't a guy that you even watched when we talked about QBs. Ian Book.
Nope.
I thought, like going back and even looking at him, but what I thought before too, I thought he was pretty similar to Mac Jones in how he plays the game. He takes a long time to make decisions though. Like he sits in the pocket for a while, and he's lucky that he had a bunch of guys that were taken in like the first 3 rounds for his offensive linemen blocking for him up there because he takes a while to decipher coverages and make a throw. He can maneuver the pocket well. He can maneuver outside of the pocket as well too. He's got a little bit of athleticism to him. He's not just Davis Mills, who's a statue in the pocket. Uh, he's got a medium arm and broke tons of Notre Dame records during his time there. So, I mean, Notre Dame's a pretty storied college, and if you're out here just shattering every single record that there is at the QB position there, that you gotta be doing something right.
Yeah, I mean he threw a touchdown pass against Pitt. How many people? How many people can we say did that? Like,
And
who?
live to tell the tale.
Yeah,
You could do it, but you
survive.
aren't walking away being able. You're drinking your supper after that, dude.
Yeah. I'm not, like you said, I'm not really familiar with him prior to this, but he's more of a scrambler than I thought he would be. Like, I don't know where I got the idea of what I thought he was going to be beforehand, looking at him, but he's good at over the top into like bucket throws. Like anything
Mm-hmm.
that he gets a lot of touch on, he's really good on. But not seeing as much like of like a flatline ball that would need like really solid velocity to get to a
Yeah.
receiver. It's a lot of touch throws. Seriously, from everything I knew about this guy, though, I'm shocked by the scrambling, and he could actually be used by them during the regular season in weird ways because he's so much more athletic than I thought he would be. But I mean, that scrambling totally goes back to your point of like he does not want to make a decision within the first 20 seconds of the play starting. He's going to drop back and
Mm-hmm.
wait as long as he possibly can before he'll throw that ball up.
Yeah, and with his like kind of best of both worlds, he seems like kind of a middle in between Jameis and Taysom a little bit. Maybe a little bit more towards Jameis, but I don't think that this is just like a throwaway pick for the Saints. I think Sean Payton might have something up his sleeve, utilize him this season, or maybe even like make him the franchise quarterback after a year or two. I don't know. I really liked Ian Book before the draft, and seeing him go to the Saints with Sean Payton, I want to see how they utilize him.
Well,
Uh,
I think you're right in terms of saying that he's kind of like a middle ground between the two. I think that Sean Payton will eventually like have a decision of who this starting quarterback is going to be, and whether it's going to be Taysom or whether it's going to be Jameis. Neither of them are on terribly long-term deals, and the idea here is that we can get Ian Book now. That way, when the deal does expire for the guy who they end up choosing not to go with, then they can keep their main guy, and Ian Book can back up either of them either way because they feel like he has a skill set that can get it done either way.
mhm. Now for their 6th round pick, a pick that we're gonna break down a lot here. We have a lot to say about Landon Young. Um, So let me just start it off real quick. He's solid O-line depth and he plays left tackle. All right, let me throw it to you now.
You have everything I thought.
Awesome. Awesome. Oh,
Sixth
and
round is too late to study for O-line. I'm sorry.
I wouldn't watch some of his stuff, but like I watch every O lineman stuff, even no matter how late it is. It's just I got nothing much to say. Like, yeah, he looks solid. It's really hard to evaluate offensive linemen. I think that's exactly what teams do too. Like, yeah, we kind of need a backup tackle here. Let's just draft whoever we have highest on our board. The scouts did all the watching. And then in the seventh round, they take a shot, obligatory wide receiver pick here, in Kawan Baker out of Jackson State. He's kind of a bigger body, or is Jackson? Yeah, it's Jackson State, right?
I don't know. I can't even remember what
I
school
think
it
it's
was at
Jackson
this point.
State. He's a bigger body, 6'1", not as big as Michael Thomas, but kind of utilized similar to him, in that he's running some shorter routes, running some slants, but he could take the top off too. He looks so slow when he's like running past all these guys. When I watched his tape, it's like he's walking and he's getting past all these guys here. I don't know if it's just the long strides that were messing with me, but didn't look that fast. But they used him everywhere. Like he was getting, they were throwing deep balls to him, throwing slants, throwing outs, throwing screens to him. Like he was obviously their number one receiver, and they're like, well, we're only going to score points if the ball's in this guy's hands, so let's just keep getting him the ball.
Yeah, I don't hate this obligatory receiver pick so much because, like I kind of said earlier, it's really only the top three guys that I kind of even feel any bit confident in on this receiving core. I don't think it's terribly deep. I feel like there's probably only one guy that you can really say is a proven wide receiver in Michael Thomas, right? So I mean, if one guy goes down with injury, we're kind of looking around like, who's coming up next? You mentioned Lil Jordan Humphrey. I'm sorry, I really don't think it's him at this point. Not trying to offend him or anything, but I don't. Kawan Baker's interesting to me. He's like I haven't done this too much this offseason, so I'll do it here since we're kind of coming to the tail end of like all these teams that we've gone through. If Stefon Diggs is worth like if Stefon Diggs, like if you're going to the store and you were like, can I buy a Stefon Diggs? They were like, yeah, this is Stefon Diggs. It's $10, and it's like, I only have 50 cents. Do you have anything that's really like that, but like just like kind of like it, but like really cheap, and it's like Kawan Baker's right there, man. And it's like, okay, I'll take it. You take my 50 cents. All right, I'll take Kawan Baker. And that's how I feel about him. Really, really off-brand Stefon Diggs. I don't know. That's just how I felt. I felt like his game, yeah, kind of mimicked. And then the way you were describing it, I was like, yeah, that's still kind of making me think of Stefon Diggs. So I don't feel like I was completely off with that take.
You got any UDFAs?
I do. Just because, they couldn't re-sign Thomas Morstead, they had to go out and pick up a punter from Syracuse by the name of Nolan Cooney. And also, they had a wonderful name that they picked up on top of this. Just a great name. Out of Indiana, running back, Stevie Scott III.
Really.
Really.
That's awesome.
Good name. Good name right there.
Yes.
So I had to point that one out.
He might even make the roster too. I'm a big Stevie Scott the third fan now.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. For the schedule, the over-under is 9.5 wins, and you can go first today, my friend.
9.5 wins. Wow, I think this is gonna be the first one in a while where I'm actually close to the over/under here, and I'm not just like at an extreme end of it. Week 1, home against Green Bay. I think no matter who the quarterback is for the Packers here, they still get the win.
The Packers. The Packers get the
win. No. The Saints. The Saints get the win.
Okay.
Superdome's going to be rocking because it's going to be the first time fans have been in there in over a year, so it's going to be even louder than usual. If it's Jordan Love, his head might explode because of all the pressure that's going to be on him and just that noise. And even Aaron Rodgers, I don't know if he'd be able to hear anything in that and operate well. He might not even be in shape because he just looks like he's having fun golfing right now. So I think the Saints pick up a Week 1 win home against Green Bay. Now, with a win like that, you're going to be thinking Week 2, that's a win. No, I have them splitting every single divisional game. The NFC South might be, once every team gets their quarterback situation figured out, it could be the new NFC West. And the NFC West, it's not even going to be as competitive as like everyone else thinks it's going to be. At least in our eyes, we think there's going to be some disparity in it. Though all division games are tough, but I think at Carolina they take an L here. At New England, week 3, New England's way better team than they are or than they were last season. Having so many holes on their defense now, New Orleans, I think it's an easy win for New England this early in the season, especially if they're still trying to figure out their quarterback situation too. Like, I don't know if it seems like very college for Sean Payton to be bouncing back and forth between like Jameis and Taysom to figure it out, but I wouldn't even put that beside him at that point. Just be like, well, I need to see how both of you do in a game situation, so I'm gonna start both of you for a game ish and still be figuring it out. So 1-2 at this point, and then they get a pick me up game here, week 4, home against the Giants. They should rock them here. Daniel Jones has a lot of weapons. Can Daniel Jones get the ball to his weapons? That is the big question. I mean, handing the ball off to Saquon, that's easier than throwing the ball to Kenny Golladay in terms of getting it to them. But I don't think you can just hand the ball off to Saquon the whole game and expect to beat the Saints. So that's their second win. Then at the football team, I think they pick up an L here. The football team's defense is going to be maulers, and that offense is nothing to slouch on either, as we've talked about. So they pick up an L there. And then they go into their bye week. They come out of their bye week, and they're at Seattle. I do not like Seattle a lot. I compared in my head the Seattle team that's going to be on the field in 2021 and this Saints team that's going to be on the field in 2021. Pretty similar teams. So then I was thinking, okay, I'm going to bring this to the coaches then. I'm going to think about this coach-wise. Pete Carroll, Sean Payton. And Sean Payton, I think, could probably at this point in his career, because Pete Carroll's getting pretty old, he's getting up there, I think he could still coach circles around Pete Carroll when it comes to offense versus defense, because that's their mindset, the two of them. I think they'd pick up a win here at Seattle. They're traveling to the other side of the country. It's an away game, but I still think they get the win. Home against Tampa Bay. I said that they're going to split every divisional game. They're not going to get the win in this one though. They had Tampa Bay's number all last season until it came to the playoffs. I don't think they get the win at home against Tampa Bay though. I think they have to wait a little bit more to the end of the season to figure out what to do against Tampa. Next week, home against ATL. They get a win there. At Tennessee, that's an L. Tennessee, it's really hard to pick games against Tennessee, especially this New Orleans team. At Philadelphia, that's a win. The Eagles, yikes, they look rough. Home against Buffalo, that's a Thanksgiving game, I believe. I think that's going to be an L. Just if it comes down to offense via offense on that, just like who can outscore who, the Bills are going to be able to outscore them. And then another primetime game the next week against Dallas, right?
Yeah,
because both of those teams have.
Because Dallas, for some reason, always gets a Thanksgiving game and then gets the Thursday night game the following week for absolutely no reason. They play a different team that also played on Thanksgiving. I don't know why the NFL started doing that, just so that we can see more Dallas, apparently. I hate it, though. But yeah, you're
right. So that's a home game against Dallas. I think they get the win against Dallas at home. At the Jets, that's a win. Not very high on the Jets to do much this season. At Tampa Bay, they're streaking at this point. They got 2 wins in a row. Streaking. Going to Tampa Bay. Carry that momentum. You need to get into the playoffs. You need to keep winning games. So they get a win at Tampa. Home against Miami. I think they get the win.
Hang on.
What?
Hang on. That Tampa game. Is there any way that stays in that Sunday night football slot at week 15? Okay. I
No,
didn't think so. Just had to
I,
check with you quick.
even if it's like the Saints need to win the next 4 games in order to make it into the playoffs, I still think that's like okay. But Tampa Bay's been locked in since week 10, so why does it matter? They'd
Yeah.
give it to 2 other teams that are competing for a wild card at that point.
Yeah.
Uh, Tampa Bay, the Saints need to do all that they can to win, and Sean Payton has proven that he can beat the Bucks in the regular season. When it gets to the postseason, though, I don't know. Home against Miami and home against Carolina, the next two. Fortunately for them, these 2 games are probably going to mean the most in their season of whether they get into the playoffs or not down the stretch. And they're both at home. And Miami might not even have Tua as their quarterback at this point. And Carolina, they've already lost to Carolina this season. I said they're going to split with all their divisional opponents. So I think they pick up 2 wins in a row. And then they end the season, and Atlanta could maybe be spoiler here with how their record's sitting and give them an L week 18 to maybe push them outside of the playoffs. So that gives them a 10-7 record for me.
Okay. Okay. I was not counting along with while you were going, so I wasn't sure where that was gonna fall. Okay, that's interesting because you'll hear what I have to say now.
All
Um,
right.
Week one, we've got this game against Green Bay. Um, j- After seeing the rosters of what's been happening this offseason, Green Bay still has what they had last season, while New Orleans literally just got like completely demolished in terms of what their roster as a whole looked like. It's not the same, and right now, as of today, it changes every day, but right now I'm leaning towards Aaron Rodgers will probably be there, and if Aaron Rodgers is on the field, I don't think this is much of a competitive game. It definitely turns into a much more interesting game if Aaron Rodgers isn't playing. But even if he isn't playing, I think the Packers are actually a significantly better roster than the Saints, so that'll keep the game interesting. Even though I don't think Jordan Love is in for a good first game if that's his first game. The roster's really good, and that could keep it close. But I'm saying L right now because I think Aaron Rodgers is going to play. Uh, Week two, they go at Carolina. I think that they can win this game at Carolina. It's kind of interesting walking this fine line with them, trying to figure out who they can and can't beat. And it's really based off the outlook for this year. I think Carolina is probably a closer team to them than we want to admit, like especially with how opposite they finished last season. It feels like the Saints really dropped back a step while Carolina at least advanced their roster somewhat. Maybe not a crazy amount, but somewhat. Feels like they're closing down the gap a little, but I still got the Saints winning this game. And now week three they play at New England, the team that they're actually mimicking last season's based off of, because they've still got their great coach, but their awesome quarterback who is on their team forever seemingly is now gone. And that just changes everything, and that's kind of how I feel about how this season's gonna go. It's like this team with what happened to the roster kind of got disassembled. The coach is still there, but the longtime quarterback won't be there to kind of keep the troops together, and I feel like that's gonna lead to a downhill year for these guys. And it's kind of it's almost like what the Patriots did this past season, and losing a decent chunk of games. But what'll come out of it is, and they were kind of forced into this corner anyways, is hopefully that they have a lot more cap room to work with next offseason than they did this offseason, because they had none to speak of. And I think that's a loss at New England, because I think New England improved a ton this year. And coaching-wise, obviously, I can't say that there's a heavy advantage in either team's favor here. So I'm going to go with the better roster, and I think it's New England by a long shot after seeing what happened. Week four, they play the Giants. Hate the Giants. That's a W. Week five against the Washington football team. High on Washington. We've made that very clear. Both sides of the ball we think are going to be impressive for Washington. I don't think that playing out Washington, this is going to be much of a... I mean, it could be a close game, but I'm still pretty heavily like confident in Washington in this one. Week six, they got their bye week. Boy, for a team that I'm not excited about, this is just another thing that's laying on, like, at least in terms of where they were last season to where I'm projecting them to be this season, this is not a thing I want to see. A week 6 bye and now an 18-week season, that does not help very much at all. They play Seattle on Monday Night Football at Seattle. Once again, I talked about this when we went through Seattle's schedule. I feel like this game, Saints Seahawks, has been played out like maybe 3 or 4 times, like over my life or something, and I don't feel like the game has ever fallen in New Orleans. And you talk about two of the best like home field advantages in football. Two of the places you're going to think of are New Orleans and Seattle. It's crazy that this game always falls in Seattle, but I mean, that's one of the reasons that I'm going to be picking Seattle in that game, even though the Saints are coming off a bye. Then they play Tampa Bay. Tampa Bay kept their roster the same. Maybe not improved, but their roster was already at a really good spot, and they were meshing together almost perfectly at the end of last season. Whereas New Orleans is kind of falling apart. I'm not like you, and I'll say it right now. I don't have them beating Tampa Bay in either of the games they play them this season. Then they play the Falcons the following week. I think they can beat the Falcons. The Falcons are a team that's pretty close to them too. They're similar to the Panthers. The Falcons could steal one from them, but right now I'm giving them both the games that they'll play against the Falcons as well. Then the following week they play Tennessee. We really like Tennessee. That's an L. Week 11 they go to Philadelphia. Philadelphia is probably a bottom 3 roster in the league, just to be completely honest, so we have to give them the W there, especially with a rookie head coach. I mean, Philadelphia is not going to be pretty this season. You should be beating Philadelphia almost no matter who you are, really. There's not many teams that should be losing to Philadelphia. Then they play Buffalo the following week, as we said. I think this is a loss. I don't think this one's even that close, honestly. I think these teams, I think Buffalo's going to be on an uptrend this season while New Orleans is on a downtrend. And
what a homer.
Yeah.
What a homer.
Yeah, sorry. You're right. I mean, you're not wrong. It completely. Just not seeing how this game should be close. It's at home, though. That helps them. Following week against Dallas, as we talked about before. I think I was thinking about giving them this game. I feel like I probably had a game in here. They're probably going to win a game in here that is against one of these good teams, like because they have the coach and they kind of have like plenty of superstars on their team, like Kamara and Michael Thomas and those type of guys, and just creative offense with Taysom Hill and stuff like that. That they'll be able to beat a team like Dallas at some point in the season. Even though Dallas wasn't that great record-wise at the end of last season, I'm expecting Dallas to be a pretty decent bit of competition in the NFC. And they'll probably steal a game in here that I gave them an L in, but just don't want to pick them straight up in any of these. So that's an L for the time being. Then the next week they play at New York against the Jets. I think that should be a W. Once again, this is another team that I would say is in that conversation with Philly and Houston being a bottom 3 team in the league. Roster-wise, I don't love what's going on there, so that's a W. At Tampa, Week 15, I already talked about this. That's another L. Week 16 against the Dolphins. This is probably the only game that I have that may be kind of questionable to people in terms of me giving them a win that they didn't, that others may not expect me to give them. I'm giving them this win versus Miami just because, like we said, that Tua situation isn't very attractive to me. And if we want to go with the team that, if I say both these defenses are fairly decent or at a fairly equal level, I'll go with the team with the better offensive coach then to get over the hump of playing that defense. And I think Sean Payton beats out Brian Flores in offensive coaching, to say the least. And then the following 2 weeks, they play versus Carolina and at Atlanta. I think that they can win both those games still, but they may be closer than I expect. And honestly, what I get to here for them is an 8-9 record, which is as a Saints fan, that I mean, with what you've been doing in recent history, that sounds awful, but I mean, with what happened this offseason and all the sorts of changes going on, I don't think it's crazy. Like I said, I feel like this is going to be last season's Patriots vibes, where it's like, really, like, yeah, it was bad, but like we haven't seen them be bad in so long that it's like we're still kind of questioning it even before the season. And then what did the Patriots end up going? 6-10 or 7-9? Pretty close. Pretty close to that record at 8-9 for the Saints. Probably could drop an extra game in the division that I gave them a win in, and probably pick up a game against a good team that I didn't give them a win in. Even if I get some of these games wrong, I don't feel like my prediction, even though it's a losing record for a team that's been solid for a really long time, I don't think it's that crazy. I don't feel, and just lastly, for the over-under, I don't really feel anything strong in this. It's a game and a half under, the over-under of 9.5. But you got a creative coach there, so I mean, that type of thing, he could scheme up some things, get him to 10 wins or something like that. I mean, that's what you'd put him at, so swing it 2 games. I wouldn't feel strong about that bet either.
I think 9.5 is like the perfect place to have their over-under at, because 8, 9, 10-ish wins, I think that's where their benchmark is going to kind of be. I think that's kind of, like, they could definitely do way worse than 8 wins, but I think the best that they can do is maybe 11.
Yeah. I still have to say that coming back to that video that did so well for us with my perspective on why Taysom Hill should start for this team, I still actually do believe that really, like, if they really committed to a run-heavy approach where they were willing to run their quarterback a significant amount in an offense, that would really make it so that defenses have to completely game plan differently for their team. I feel like that could actually boost their win total a lot for the regular season. The thing is once they get to the postseason, looking at the roster again, I said in that could give them like home field advantage in the NFC. I don't think the roster's there anymore. I don't think the roster's even close. I do think it boosts their win total, but if you're talking about going on the road in the playoffs, I don't like the run-heavy approach as much. And at that point, I would say I like Jameis, but I think you've got to rock with what you go with initially, like throughout the whole year. So
yeah.
So like I kind of said in that video, I like the idea of going with the Taysom offense in terms of getting more regular season wins. I really think that it could be able to push this team to get more regular season wins. But once we get to the postseason and they got to go on the road, I feel like it's going to be very important for them to throw the ball. And if they took the whole season to throw the ball down the field too, like get the ball down the field, not just like short stuff. And I feel like Jameis is the option you would want to go with to do that. And if they took the whole season running the ball with Taysom in the game, I don't think they're going to be able to switch it up that point, and I feel like they could be fairly quickly eliminated in the playoffs. On the other hand, if they try to throw the ball the whole season, it doesn't confuse teams as much.
Don't know if they're even going to be contending for the playoffs.
Yeah, I don't know if they're going to make the playoffs then. It's going to be a fun team to watch. It's going to be really interesting.
Yeah,
to see
so
how
what
this
you're
all
saying
plays out.
is start Ian Buck. That's what you're saying.
No, don't do that. Whatever you do, don't do that. Please don't do that. If that happens, Sean Payton has gone insane.
No, I'm interested to see what the Saints team does. Very interested to see, because I feel like, well, besides the Packers, because I think that's just a gimme. They have a lot of question marks around them, but I think people are still expecting them to do well.
Yeah.
Like I feel like most of like the public, even like talking heads too, have an idea of like what they think every team's going to do. But when, Packers obviously, but with the Saints, it's like, okay, who's going to be their quarterback? And most people have defaulted to Jameis, but then you got people kind of like us that are leaning more like you. I don't want to group us both in here because I feel like I lean more towards Jameis too. But it's really split on who should be the starting quarterback for this team.
Well, I mean, I'm not saying that Taysom will be the starter. The only thing I've been saying the whole time is that I think he should be. I don't know if he will be. That's not the argument I'm making, because it's not my decision, and I really don't have any.
No one should argue that, because it's not your decision to make. Yeah, who you want.
Yeah, no, I'm just saying what I think should happen for the best outcome, and I said why I think it could be a good outcome or a bad outcome already too. So I mean, kind of covering my behind too.
Yeah.
So So what about this? We say a lot of teams are really interesting. There's basically storylines for like every team that kind of like get me interested in them for one reason or another. Like, and I don't feel like there's too many boring teams in the NFL. Who is the most boring team in the NFL to you? And I know that's a hard question to put you on the spot with. So if you want me to say my answer first, I will.
Colts.
The Colts, really? I mean, they got a new QB still.
That's
You see.
still it's Carson Wentz. It's a new quarterback, but it's Carson Wentz.
Okay, okay, that's fair. I actually kind of can understand that one. Um, Honestly, I think if Aaron Rodgers goes back to the Packers, I think that's the team I'm probably like least interested in watching this season.
Oh yeah, for sure.
Like,
Him going back to the Packers is the most boring outcome of this entire offseason.
yeah, like what type of news have we felt like we've had that's been significant for the Packers this offseason besides that? If he just ends up going back, it's like the lamest story ever. And
Yeah.
I feel like we've been able to come up with things for every other team, but I feel like the Packers are honestly like the least interesting with, and I think he's just going to end up going back there, which makes it even worse.
Yeah. Yeah.
Even though they'll be a solid team, I'm just not
Mm.
interested to watch them.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of other things to be interested in, though, like the Saints. I mean, the Saints got a lot of stuff that'll be interesting. Do you lean? Do you lean more towards? I mean, you're saying 10-7, but do you lean more towards the idea that I described with them being kind of like the Patriots last year, or do you think that they'll be
Oh,
able
there's
to?
going to be regression, and I think you might see it at the start of the season because I can see them dropping that Green Bay game to start the season that I gave them and just come out of the gate with 3 straight losses, and then teams like everyone's like, "Oh, the Saints are not what we usually expect them to be," and it's because Breeze is retired. So,
Yeah,
yeah.
don't even put it all on that. I mean, that's heavy losses. There's
Oh yeah,
when
I,
you
I
have
think
when
that's
you have
the
casual.
defensive losses. I think are going to show later in the season when they get it all together, and it's like, why aren't we winning these games? It's like, oh, because we've lost like a bunch of interior defensive linemen that we just didn't replace at all.
Yeah, no, it's just not even. I don't want to. I don't even want to pick out like a specific spot. Like it's just guys like all over. There's just solid players all over the team that are just gone now, and
Yeah,
I don't want to pick out a specific spot. It's just kind of
release Troutman.
a little bit of a
Release Troutman is what we're saying. Release Troutman.
listen.
Like
If
let him loose.
if Deontay Harris and Adam Troutman go out there and they just throw those two the ball every play of every game, this will be the most exciting offense in the league. I'm kidding.
Yes. Yes, because you got a tight end that never drops the ball, and you got a wide receiver who makes highlight plays every time he does touch the ball. So, can't go wrong.
Yeah. No, excited. Leave it at that.
Very excited.
Leave it at
Yes.
that. Uh, what do you? Just one more time though. What do you think about the Taysom Jameis situation that I described? Do you think that Jameis in the regular season actually gets them more wins?
I think it's gonna be Jameis. I think he's just so
no,
he's a
no.
traditional what?
No, but what do you think? Like regular season, tell me like the scenario for regular season and then postseason that I described. Do you think that regular season Jameis would get them more wins?
They win
Or,
7 games with Jameis in the regular season. I think
and how many did they win if Taysom's the starter in the regular season?
10.
And what about the postseason? What's their like? If Jameis
I
is the
think they
quarterback,
lose both. I think they lose both if like either. I think they lose in the wild card
you see, I feel like
because
Jameis could heat up.
Jameis has never played in the playoffs before. He has no playoff
But
experience. I think he might crumble under that pressure.
but I think he could heat up. Like I think he could get hot, just like 2 games hot. Like go wild card round, divisional round, and just be like 5 touchdowns in each of those games and only 1 interception in those 2 games, and then just be like, dang, 10-1 touchdown to interception ratio for the playoffs so far. Maybe then crumble in like the championship game, but just show off or something like 2 games and get him further. Well, I think they could have a decent record with Taysom playing quarterback in the regular season and then just lose like and not even have it be very close in the playoffs.
Yeah, maybe.
It's a really weird situation, only made worse by the fact that so many pieces from the team are leaving.
Mm-hmm.
All right. You have one more thing?
Nope, I'm good.
Okay. Well, with that being said, I think I've said everything I want to cover. Are you all set?
I think we can cut this here.